Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Perspective Shift podcast. In this episode, we want to talk about the unknown and embracing the unknown. And what inspired us to do this episode is the fact that in less than a week, we are moving to a new place. And it's something that is usually unpredictable. You are going to a new environment and you're leaving your old environment behind. So let me ask you this. How do you connect the fact that we are moving to the idea of the unknown?
I connect that to a lot of stuff. So for those who don't know, which I guess a lot of people don't know, we have moved quite often in the past. Some of it was in the seek of a better environment, and some of it was just a way to challenge ourselves. At least, especially for me, I've moved like 3 times when I noticed that I was getting a little bit too comfortable with my old spot, and it's not necessarily the right step to do when you're moving to force yourself to move to just so you can challenge yourself. But when you have the opportunity to do so, I feel like it makes a lot of steps afterwards easier because you're just taking yourself from an environment that you're used to and like you're throwing yourself in cold water, which puts you in a position where like, okay, this is something unknown. I don't know whether this move is going to be better or not. I don't know what's going to follow up with it or not. And that puts you already in a little bit of an uncomfortable position that you have to be in. And then that also, which of course makes you more alert, more focused, and just gets you out of your comfort zone, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think I want to follow up to what you said by the fact that I also moved a lot in the last years, but for me, it didn't start like with a conscious choice that I want to move from here to there because I could learn from it. For the first few moves, it was more forced. I mean, the first move is obviously when we left our country. And then I moved from different European countries and then from different cities. Some of these moves were conscious. Some of these moves were more forced that I had to do it. And, moving is a really big thing that destabilizes you from the things that you're doing, from your routine, and maybe from the friends that you have. It's something that can be really scary. And there is a reason for that. And I think for me, like, the thing that I've been thinking about for a while and something that I also talked about a lot in my YouTube videos about the unknown is the fact that, back then when humanity started, when we didn't have civilization and stuff, we were actually hunting for food and running from animals and the whole thing where every day you were faced with extreme challenges and you didn't have a stable home. You didn't have things that you said, these are my belongings, So you were always facing the unknown. It was just a normal thing. And then when you think about it, slowly we started to have civilizations and build tools and have homes and have, farms, plants, everything, the things that we called ours. And this gave us stability. And then slowly this idea of facing the unknown became more and more foreign as more security we had. And then you jump to the present day where, we are born in an environment where we have safety and security. It is our norm. And we are taught that we should have our own homes and get married and everything. And all of this makes us really scared to go to a new environment, to go to a new place, to visit new places, meet new friends. And so that's why I think this idea of the unknown is something that we fear so much in modern society. And it's a big thing that I think it's always beneficial to seek the discomfort more and more, even if it feels like really hard and unnatural to us.
This is just my own opinion. I'm not some kind of scientist or some whatever. I don't know how people in the past used to be, and I don't have the data to back this up. But I believe that even people in the past, when human beings started to be, per se, they were faced with the unknown all the time, but I feel like at the same time, they were seeking stability in one way or another, because stability leads you to comfort and leads you to having a stable, predictable.
It's probably our nature.
I guess it's in our nature. I don't want to be like, okay, let's blame evolution for that. But I feel like evolution plays a huge role in this. Throughout the fact that since back in the days, we seeked stability and predictability as well, we got to the point in our modern society where stability and predictability is something that is easily presented to us in our daily lives, and as it is kind of like part of human nature
That's actually a very
or
good
like
point.
evolution. I feel like that's why we seek it a little bit more than we should. The other side of the spectrum, or on the other hand, the problem is when you get too comfortable and you get such a predictable life. One of many things can happen, starting with boredom, not fulfilled, not satisfied, getting a little bit too comfortable that you don't want to try new things or move on, and as human beings, I feel like we need to face the unknown or like put ourselves in uncomfortable positions so we can grow. Again, I cannot back this up. I don't remember the exact study or exact data from it, but a scientist proved it in the last few years, I guess, that the more experiences that you build in your life, the more neurons your brain fires. So like when you experience something new, when you do something new, put yourself in a new position, the more your brain connects the network that it got inside of it.
New connections in the brain happen.
Exactly. Thank you. I don't know how to phrase it.
I think because I know for sure that Andrew Huberman talked about this a lot, about neuroplasticity and the changes in your brain when you expose yourself to new environments, to meeting new people, all the things that really get you excited and think in new ways. So
exactly. And we kind of need the new experiences, the unknown, the this and this, so we can build like more connections in our brain, and so we can experience new stuff, and we can just move on with our lives while trying new things out and trying to find. I'm not saying that there's something, just to clarify, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with being stable and predictable, but I guess it's also in our nature to take things for granted. So when you're in a stable, predictable environment, I think it's quite easy for us to take that for granted and forget the first reasons that we took the first steps toward that style of life, and things could easily go in a wrong direction that you wouldn't want. But after a good amount of work, of course, that is also changeable, where you learn, where you teach yourself agency, gratitude, and not taking things for granted. But like I said, I feel like the experiences of new things is something that is quite important for us, especially since it also teaches you a little bit of who you are and who you actually want to be.
I will take that from another perspective, that my issue with stability and predictability is that all the things that we build as humans, these are things that are not normal in nature. And any moment something can happen, maybe an earthquake, something really bad, you might lose everything, and then you're just in shock. You don't know what to do, you're mourning your losses, and like you don't know how to move on. But if you are someone who is exposing yourself more and more to uncomfortable situations, to something that is a bit more risky and stuff, then you're more aware of how life can be, of this reality that life is really unpredictable sometimes. So when you're always in safety and predictability, you become more and more afraid when times move on. So this is how I like to see why it is really important to seek new things, to travel more, to see the world, to go visit a first world country, but also visit a third world country to see how people live differently, to expose yourself to the reality of this world, which the advancement make it harder and harder to see that. We just blind ourselves to the reality of this planet, the way how life works. So yeah, like so that's why people are just really afraid of these kind of things.
I feel like predictability also causes us to, like, when you've got this predictable lifestyle and you know what you're doing, you're a bit comfortable in that, like you kind of become a bit narrow focused, and you kind of tend to forget to look a bit more outwardly or try to have a bit of a broader view. So building up on what you said, for me, at least, the changing point in my life that made me a bit more comfortable with the unknown was the fact when I sat down and realized it depends on the perspective that you look at it. So our life is full of risks and full of gambles, but you can like take life and put it technically in a cube, all right? And it depends on which side of the cube you're observing your life's going to be either predictable or it's going to be extremely uncertain. And when I started looking more at this uncertain part of my life, that's when I started becoming a bit more familiar with the unknown and I started being more open to experiencing new things. So when I'm talking about it, I mean the fact that I'm going to take it here to the extreme for a lot of people. But for me, someone who went through the war, it wasn't really the extreme. It was like that normal day-to-day life,
Sure.
Which was, if I decide to leave home, I could get killed, kidnapped, shot at, whatever, somewhere outside. And then, on the other hand, if I decide that I'm going to spend the day at home, then the same thing could happen. Like I said, I know this is going to be something a little bit extreme for a lot of people, but for someone who grew up in a war, that was actually my day-to-day life. So for me, when I started looking at my life from that perspective, like, okay, me going out, got a huge risk. Me staying at home, also got a huge risk.
Sure.
And when I started trying to balance them out and try to weigh which one is more risky, I was like, they both are kind of equally risky.
Taking a risk anyway.
Exactly. And then I started applying this to a lot of other stuff. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, waking up, going to sleep, eating this, not eating this, deciding to go outside. If you want to hit the gym, like, you are risking hurting yourself at the gym.
Sure.
If you decide that you're not going to hit the gym so you don't hurt yourself, then that could hurt you in the longer run. So there's a risk no matter what you do.
Yeah.
It just, when I started looking at my life in that perspective of like, okay, there's risks everywhere. Like, all my life is just like a gamble. And there's no avoiding of it. It's just that so far I've been blind to that part of my life. And then I became aware of it. Epiphany, like this, one of these aha moments that you get. Whereas that since there's risks anyways, I might as well at least decide or get to choose which risk I want to live with. And then from there on, it took me a couple of years till I got a bit more comfortable with the unknown. And I think just like I said, it depends on the perspective that you look at the cube. When people start becoming, because like we said, I'm gonna go back a little bit here just to, I guess, like, I went a little bit messy here with the topic, but like, if you look at it like this, predictability is gonna make you narrow focus, and you're not gonna have a broader picture. But at the same time, once you have the predictability, but you still are willing to look at the other side of the cube, which is life, and realize that there's risks anywhere, you're going to be more willing to take in new risks, to take in new challenges on.
I think for me, it went really, my journey was really turbulent and upside down with the whole facing the unknown, because, I faced the war as well. Maybe not to the degree that you had, because when you told me all the stories that you experienced and stuff, you saw more people dying, you were more at risk and the whole thing. And I didn't experience as much as you, but I was at war and I was at risk of dying as well. So like the first few years when I left the country, it was like, I didn't care about risk. I wanted to leave my family. I wanted to be on my own. I traveled to Egypt and then I traveled to Sweden all on my own, without a plan, without a structure, without anything, which is something that now is hard for me to think about. But then after I left Sweden and came to Germany, I started to try to forget all the stories from Syria. And I reached a phase where I was really afraid of the unknown, like of trying new things. I started to do some things in Germany as a career, and then I continued doing that, even though I didn't like them much, because I was just afraid of trying something else. And the same thing when I thought about moving to a new city. So I always waited till the last moment where I was forced to do something else or to move somewhere else. Like when COVID happened, we were in lockdown, I was forced to move somewhere else and go to another city where you were living with my cousin, for example. And then slowly I started to read about, history, psychology. I started to ponder about many things about this life and how it works, the fear of death and the whole thing. And that slowly started to remind me that at some point I wasn't really afraid of all of this. I was just taking risk. I was doing things. So what changed? I was just holding myself back, and my whole thoughts were I was just stuck in loops,
Predictability.
Yeah. And then, moving again from place to place, quitting jobs, starting new jobs, having to discuss things with people and go in arguments and things that I was really afraid of. I got exposed to these things more and more. And then I realized that all my fears are just really just in your head, and And as you said, everything you do is going to be a risk. You can hurt yourself even if you go outside and cross the street. So you might as well take the risks that you want that might improve your life eventually. Some of these risks are going to work out, some of them are not going to work out. But if you don't do anything, then you're just stuck in your predictable, stable.
It's called a risk. It's called a gamble for a reason.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anybody in this world who would be completely fine by not doing anything new in their lives for the rest of their lives. They're just, even if they deny that, I think they're innerly just afraid of changing anything in their environment because they're so used to it. They want to see the same faces. They want to be stuck in the same routine again and again.
Don't forget. So like, I guess this is where we differ a little bit because, for example, I would never say something like this. Not in the sense of like, it's just something that when I think about it, it's like, there's no way for me to know how the other person is actually feeling or thinking. Even if they were completely vulnerable and actually told me and then everything, maybe there's part of it that they themselves are not aware of it. And thus they won't be able to mention it. And then I will never be able to know that. But at the same time, keep in mind that I feel like there's a lot of people who actually prefer a predictable, repeatable, day-to-day.
But for how long?
Some people prefer this for a lifetime. Some people would choose to have almost the same day every day for the rest of their lives. And it also plays a role, I guess, in the way that you grew up and the environment that you grew up in.
It's your personality as well.
Like, look at it like this. Imagine that you grew up your entire life in an unstable environment where things were always like volatile. I think it's normal for these people to at some point start seeking a little bit more predictable life, just to balance things out. And then for those who grew up in a little bit more unbalanced life, in a little bit more stable life, it's normal for them to start seeking a bit more unstable life to have the balance. I feel like technically it's like what we experience as kids or growing up or at some point in our life. We try to do the opposite of it.
Sure.
So we can have the balance, And if you look at it like, there's people who live their entire lives unstable, in instability. So it's normal, or I guess like at least I would find it normal if they one day decided that I just want to have a normal, stable life for the rest of my
life. When you say it in this way, I actually really agree with you. But I think my issue is when I know that we are really different personalities, and there are people who prefer really structured and routine life, which is, something that isn't really for me. But I get it that some people are very different in that regard. But I think there is something in us, there is something ingrained in our biology that we still get excited if, at least from time to time, something new in our lives happen. That's the thing that I feel like this is only my opinion. This is not proven. It is not scientific. But like, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want anything new in their lives for the rest of their life.
Just for the sake of clarity here, what do you mean by something new?
It could be anything. Like, I don't know, a new person they met, a new friend, or maybe visiting a new place.
So right now, we're kind of. I'm trying to have a better understanding of what you mean. So we're kind of incorporating the stuff that we can control with the stuff that we can't control. So meeting new people is not something that you can control or do specifically. You can put yourself in positions where that's more possible,
but you can't control.
Exactly. So I feel like life is okay. Just a warning. I'm gonna go a little bit more philosophical here. I'm gonna derail a little bit off topic, but just bear with me for a little bit. They had an unstable childhood. We're just taking a random person as an example, and they grew up with that unstable life for years, and then they decided that they want to have a little bit more of a routine. They want to have a little bit more of a stable, predictable life. That's their own decision. Now, life itself is unpredictable, and things can happen out of your control. So when the person is seeking predictability and repeatability and the same routine, some events that are out of their control are still going to happen, and then they're going to be upset with it. But I'm pretty sure that sometimes some good events are going to happen. Whether it's they met someone new, a new friend, I don't know, they got dragged into some activity that they've never done before, for whatever the reason that is, and they did it, you know what I mean? And then they had this joy.
And it's gonna excite them.
It's gonna excite me, and it's gonna fill up that small part of them that wants something new. And it's gonna get filled, and then they're just done with it, and then just go back to their routine.
Okay, I think this is what I was trying to say.
Predictability happens whether you want it or not. Something is gonna happen either ways.
Yeah.
And now the difference comes whether you're the kind of person that wants something new a lot, or whether you're just fine with, like, I don't know, a new experience a month, for example. And when that new experience a month happens, you're happy, you're satisfied, you go back to your routine.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't mean it has to be something in your control that you're doing consciously, but it's still something that would excite anybody if it happens from time to time. And my theory is, I never read anything about this, but it's something that my brain connected, that maybe it is something in our biology, because life has always been unpredictable and dangerous, and anything could happen at any moment. So maybe there's something ingrained in us, that there's a part of us that wants this unpredictability because it is a natural occurrence in the world.
Also, it's dopaminic, right?
Sure.
It gives you dopamine. It gives you this excitement. It gives you.
It excites your brain.
Fake emotions, which to a certain degree it is fake emotions, and it's a little bit addictive, I guess. So
Can be.
Take adrenaline as an example. All right, you know that there's people who are like adrenaline driven, so they seek events or activities that would spike up their adrenaline, and there's people who would seek activities that would give them more dopamine, or more serotonin, or more stress. You know what I mean? And these are all like unpredictable events, but they spike a certain emotion in us that people can get addictive to, which is why they seek it. But like I said at the beginning, I feel like we tend to be a little bit more stable oriented as a human species, since from the dawn of times we've had an unpredictable life, and people must have tried to seek out at least a predictable life, which is why we used to go to hunt for food, because you're hunting for food to eat now, and so you can survive in the future, and you can make life a little bit more predictable for how long you're going to be able to live, which is why we ended up building civilizations, cities, homes, all of the stuff that we have. It just so gives us a sense of safety, a sense of predictability. So I think it's more in our nature to actually seek that out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are addicted to the excitement, or we're addicted to the chemical reaction that happens in our brain when an unpredictable events happen that would spike up an emotion that we are seeking in our day-to-day life.
Okay, it's something that I connect to that, which is from my own experience. Something that maybe I used to feel a little bit guilty about, but I don't anymore because now I know it's normal. Like, for example, let's say there's a storm happening around you. You know, where we're living, a couple of times happened this really strong storm with winds and trees falling and that's something, you know, bad that is happening, but for some reason I get this excitement, like, oh, something new is happening. The weather is different. There is some danger. Or another bigger example, and this might piss some people off, but I'm just gonna say it, that, you know, when COVID started, it is something that is terrible. But there was some part of me that liked to look at the numbers that are happening, how many infections are happening every day in a country, and how the infection is going from too much happening in France and then moving to Germany, and the virus is moving from here. There was some like drama and action that is happening in the world that I was really excited to know what's going to happen next. How will this country react? What will happen now? Of course, I was also afraid and terrified and sad, all of these emotions all at once, but there was still this part that was just exciting. As you said, the dopamine, all of these chemicals that were happening in the moment, because something new was happening in the world, which is, for some time, it's just being predictable. You just hear the same things that are happening all around us, and oh, something new happened. You know, there's lockdown. You walk in the street, there's nobody outside. So that is like some examples from my own life that I completely relate to what you said.
It's sort of an adventure. Sometimes I like to, when my life starts getting a little bit predictable, and I'm fine with the predictability in my life. So like, say I've got this routine that I'm trying to work with to get to a place that I want to get to. The first period of time at the beginning. It's fun, it's a new routine that you came up with, and you're all this joyful and excited about it, and this bubbly and this and so on and so on and so on. And then at some point, it starts becoming predictable. Sure. It starts becoming boring, a bit dull. And the way that I like to spice this up for myself is by asking myself the question of like, what's tomorrow's adventure is going to be like? It's just between me and myself. So like, when the COVID started, it was like something adventurous, something new. And I just like a little bit of an example or a bit of hint here, something that I do as well, like I said, with my life. It's like, what's tomorrow's adventure is going to be like? Even though I already know the answer, but just like trying to make it a little bit more adventurous, you know what I mean?
More exciting.
Gives it a little bit of a spice. It doesn't have to be different. It's just like, what's tomorrow's adventure is going to be like? And then that kind of gives you the push to, or at least it works for me. It gives me the push to still go through it while I'm also having a little bit of fun.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very important. Like, I'm also fine with some predictability. I think it is important. Like, if you're trying to build a new skill or improving something in your life, it's a slow process that requires predictability and repetition. So that's something you need to have in your life to improve with things. But I think it's also important to spice things up a little bit here and there. That's why for me, I think I've already talked about this, but it's really connected to this, that, I like my routine. I like being productive and doing all the things with the podcast and YouTube. But then after some weeks of doing the same things over and over, going to the gym, going to work, working on all the videos and stuff, and then I'm like, fuck, I need to do something else. Like, this is just getting on my head and I just can't deal with it anymore. It's really frustrating. I become aggressive towards myself and to my friends and everyone around me. And then I try something, I visit a new place or just decide to watch a movie or whatever. And then I'm like, the next day, okay, that was really needed. And now I can go back to my predictability. Just because I did something different. I did something that I don't do usually, and that just fills me up again. I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to.
It gives you the motivation, it gives you
Sure.
the energy to continue with the.
Or
the journey.
maybe even in the routine itself, the things you're doing, you try to add something new every once in a while, just to make it not as predictable as it is. So there's a lot of different things. So when we say like,
but also just. Sorry to interrupt, but just came up across my mind as well. Just to get things a bit more clear, I feel like it's also related to where do you find joy? Like, some people have their joy by doing something new, and some people find a repeatable, predictable life joyful. So you know what I mean? It's like, for those people who love predictability, doing the predictable thing for them brings them joy. And then you've got the people who like a little bit of spice in life every now and then. Whatever spice here means, they're going to seek out something new. And they're going to try to get their fill of joy from that, and just like use it as a store of energy to push them forward in whatever they're doing.
I think it depends. Like, I do get excitement from both. Sometimes I'm just really excited to do my routine and all the things that I know that I'm going to do, and I know what's going to happen while I'm doing them. But I still get excited. But then I reach a point where I'm just not excited anymore. That's when I need to get the excitement from something else, from something new, to bring me back to the excitement of having my routine. So I think it's different for everyone. For some people, they should try new things more often than not.
Why do you think predictability and safety is important for us?
I'm also not a scientist. I can't go in the details and scientific research and everything, but I just, from the different things that I read and the things that I feel like they make sense, it is just something in our biology, in our genes, that wants us to seek this safety and predictability and security. But even things in our biology, things that are meant to protect us, which is seeking these things, and also fear, which is also sometimes can be really helpful, but in excess, it can start to backfire. It can go against us, and that's where we need to curb things down and go against our nature. And this is something that, sure, we like to go with our nature. There's a lot of things that it is important to follow our nature and follow our needs, but there are points where we have to go against our nature in order to improve our lives, venture in the unknown, and try new things. So it is always finding the balance between both, logical thinking and emotional thinking, your nature and going against your nature. So that's how I like to see it.
It just came to me. It's like it kind of reminded me of the yin and yang.
Yeah, exactly,
Like,
exactly.
you know,
Thank you.
You're finding the middle point. Like,
That's a perfect way to simplify it.
exactly. Like, it literally just came to me when you were talking about it.
The balance in everything.
It's like the yin and yang. Like, if our lives was only predictable, then that question comes up: what is predictability or what is instability?
Yeah.
And if everything was the opposite, then that question would be like, okay, what is this? What is that?
Everything is a spectrum.
And then when you've got a mix of both, when your life has a little bit more unpredictability, then you're going to seek the predictability so you can have the balance, and vice versa. Like the opposite is also the truth.
Exactly. I'm a firm believer in that, and just finding the balance in everything, even though that can be really difficult, and it's just a process, you know, like you're gonna fuck up a lot of times in your life where you're going to the extreme one way or another, whatever you're trying to do, and then you realize, okay, this was too much. I need to slow down, or maybe I slowed too much, and now I have to go faster. So finding that sweet spot is all about trial and error and trying things. So you have to venture in the unknown. You have to try new things to see what your sweet spot is. What is good for you? What is not good for you?
How would you advise people to be a bit more comfortable with the unknown? Because I feel like everyone talks about how important it is to try something new. And I feel like everyone talks about you've got to push yourself, you got to go against your nature.
I think the best thing.
No one asks that question or answers, or even tries to answer that question of like, say, I'm gonna go a little bit extreme here. Say somebody's completely lost and they don't know what the unknown for them is, and they want to venture into the unknown, but they don't even know what that is for them. What would you yourself think that the best way is for them to go into that direction?
For me, like the best answer, it could be the best, it could be another answer from different people, but I think traveling to a new country on your own and without a plan. It doesn't have to be completely spontaneous. You can, of course, maybe you have a job and everything, but you plan it and then you go to that country maybe for a week or two, preferably on your own, maybe with a good friend, but don't plan the trip itself. Like you go there, you're at the airport, and then you don't know what you're doing. You're just going. And you just figure things out one day after another. You are in a completely different environment. You don't know people there. You don't have a home. So you're just figuring things out, getting lost and finding your way and all of this. I think this is like the biggest thing that I feel like could help you understand what venturing in the unknown means and the things that you like about these new experiences and how they can benefit your life. And you're gonna reach a lot of insights because, you know, they always say if you feel like you're stuck in a rut and you're not being creative, maybe try to go for a walk outside or try to take a shower. Then a thought will come to you, a new idea will come to you. So I think it works the same way that, you know, you're stuck in your environment, you see the same faces, you're doing the same things over and over again, and then all of a sudden you go to a completely different environment where you don't know nobody, you don't have a routine, you have nothing. So this will bring you new insight, this will bring you new thoughts. This will make you figure things out that maybe you didn't know how to figure out back in your home. So that's why I would. This is the first thing that comes to my mind when like if someone doesn't know how to venture in the unknown, they're not used to it. They're very comfortable in their lives. This is the best thing they could do, in my opinion, to just go new places. Either traveling as like a vacation or just moving. You know, move out from your parents' house. Move out from whatever place you're in that you've been there for a long time. Just try something else, go somewhere else. And
I've thought about that as well, to be honest. It's probably like the easiest thing that you can do to try something new. But I feel like if you're gonna keep it simple, it's just like ask yourself, in today's society and in the modern age as well, we have an unbelievable amount of activities, events, sports, communities.
So many things you could try.
Exactly. And then I'm 1,000,000% certain that there's a lot of stuff that you've never tried.
Yeah.
And just try to find something that you think is going to excite you.
Friends.
And just try to do it. Whether you're alone, ideally with friends or with a group of people that you like, is then the experience is going to be more. But at the same time, even if you do it alone, just like do something, try it. And trying it doesn't mean that you have to do it often, but just at least give it one shot. And then that's going to give you some feelings that's going to kind of light a fire inside of you.
Yeah,
and then you can see where that fire leads you.
Yeah, go with the flow.
Whether it changes your life or whether it's like, oh, okay, maybe I was afraid of the unknown for no reason. The very simplest basic need is just like stop someone in the middle of the street and ask for help of something.
Start small, like you honestly don't have to
literally
start.
just walking down the street and just be like to someone random, just like, hey, sorry, I'm trying to get to this place, but I don't know how to get there. Can you please help me out? Since social anxiety, or like, I guess we have that problem of fearing of how people are going to react to us, especially in the modern age. They're just asking such a simple question to somebody on the street that you don't know, and just checking how they're going to react to that is probably going to give you a like, oh, maybe that wasn't as scary as I thought it would be.
I think it's a really big spectrum of issues why we fear the unknown and what kind of fear it is. Is it social anxiety? Is just fear of trying new things? Is it fear of death? It's a really big spectrum, and I think the key is to try different things, not just one thing. So I like to suggest traveling to a new place because you're exposing yourself to different kind of fears. You will sometimes you'll be forced to talk to new people.
Keep in mind that's a little bit harder for a lot of people.
Yeah,
because it includes traveling, it includes money, it includes age, it includes the country they can travel to, it includes where you're from and what kind of countries you can go to, which is why I try to take it. Like, I agree with you. I would also advise with this, but
not everyone is
exactly
able to do it.
It's not available.
I agree with that. Like I just saw it in terms when you ask you the question. I feel like it is the best thing, but not everyone can do that. That's why my other suggestion would be just to start small. Like you don't have to go all out of your way to try new things. Just maybe every week or every month, implement something new. Just a small thing. Talk to one new person, or to, try to build up just a small new habit, and just a little bit. You don't have to change everything all at once, because that's probably not going to work out. It's just about getting used to this exposure, I guess, to
exposure therapy. I just want to take a minute to look at things from a different perspective, though, because when we talk about the unknown, I feel like people always tend to look at it from the side that is related to fear of missing something or losing something, or fear of whatever. But I want to look at it from a different perspective, which I guess, at least on my own experience so far, it's overlooked a lot. And this perspective that I've thought about it was actually inspired by a quote from a movie. I don't remember what it's called. Again with the names. Coach Carter, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. It's about a basketball coach who's starting new in the school, coaching a bunch of students, and they have a lot of ups and downs. And then at some point, one of the students stands up and says, our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And when I think about that, I try to take it on a little bit.
What does that mean?
Exactly. I'm getting to the explanation. When you go a little bit a deeper level of it, our fear of the unknown could be because we know that we're capable of a lot of things, and that we are powerful beyond measure, in the sense of like, I can attain every goal that I'm setting for myself, but at the same time, I'm afraid that I'm the one who's slacking into trying to attain the goal that I want, and that kind of fears me. And I'm gonna mask that fear with the fear of the unknown.
Maybe it's fear of living.
I've heard I've noticed this issue with a lot of people. Okay, I don't want to call it an issue, but I've noticed this pattern in a lot of people where they're capable, they know that they're capable, and they don't take the steps forward. Probably mainly because they don't want to disappoint themselves. And they mask that fear of disappointment themselves with fear of the unknown.
It's also fear of leaving things behind. And when you expose yourself a little bit, it's going to start a chain. That's when you realize, oh, I can do this, I can do more.
Exactly.
But I'm leaving all of this behind.
Exactly.
It's a bit tricky. It's a really tricky question. And I like the perspective you mentioned because it's also true. But it's like, let's remember all of this is happening subconsciously and most people are just not aware why they are afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of makes sense, especially because, you know, you are used to your life for long years. And then when you realize you can...
It's not only this, because, and again, I'm going to go a little bit off topic here. It's that when you notice that there's something lacking, you start looking for meaning. Or you start looking for an explanation. And thanks to our social media nowadays, and thanks to our society, you don't get that many new perspectives. It's the same stuff in repeat on a million different pages. And I feel like a lot of people, when you try to find the explanation of the feeling that you have, you're just going to be keeping hearing something about the unknown, fear of the unknown, fear of the unknown, fear of the unknown. And then at some point, you're going to start believing that, okay, this is it. Since a million people are describing what I'm feeling, then this must be it. And you start taking it as this is who you are, instead of trying to figure out for yourself that, okay, maybe I'm not afraid of the unknown. Maybe I'm afraid of my potential and the amount of work that I'm going to have to put in to reach my potential and maybe go even beyond.
But that's exactly what I mean when I say it's a really big spectrum of fears.
Exactly.
So when you hear someone talking about fear of the unknown, even when we are now talking about fear of the unknown, everyone's going to perceive it in a certain way and think, they're just naming it, this is fear of the unknown. But it's way more complicated than that because it could be a lot of things. You know, I'll take it from an example from me. I'm someone who is partly not afraid of the unknown when it comes to visiting new places, moving to a new place, trying new things, fulfilling my potential. But when it comes to meeting new people and talking to new people, I'm extremely afraid and I'm still afraid. And this is also fear of the unknown in a sense. Social anxiety is kind of fear of the unknown. You're afraid of being rejected. You're afraid of that reaction, that unpredictable reaction that you don't want to face. It is kind of fear of the unknown. It is just different. It is really a big spectrum and there is no one explanation to it. It is just subjective experience. The things that you're afraid of are usually connected to unpredictability and things that you don't want to go against your way. So that's how I like to look at it.
I'm going to connect that to something that I said in the last episode, if I'm not mistaken, which is deconstruct things. Different subject.
Always try to deconstruct things.
And then you're going to have like more specific areas and then more specific definitions. And then you can also figure out, okay, I'm not afraid of this, but I'm afraid of this. So is this related to this? And,
exactly.
You know,
like realize what is your biggest fear. Start to tackle that first. This is your biggest issue.
It's one of the best, or at least one of, not the best. It's a quote that actually helped me a lot in my life, which is you can never connect the dots forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward.
Sure.
So what that
trial and error.
What that means exactly. It's like when you take bigger object, deconstruct it, and then after you deconstruct it multiple of times, you can retrace it backwards and you can see what are the things you're exactly afraid of and how are they related to the fear that you've thought you had, and then how you can tackle that issue.
And to actually deconstruct, you need to try things and, you know, take action in your life to figure things out. You can't just sit in your bed doing nothing and just thinking about it. It's just, for me, that's not a solution because you need to expose yourself to things to see what are you actually afraid of. Was this my fear? Am I like, I really feel afraid in this conversation or in this new experience? And, you know, because we hear what people are saying that you should try this. And maybe some of them are things that you were afraid of and other things where you didn't even have a problem, but because of what you heard, maybe you thought you had a problem, as you said before. So, yeah, so I would say that's all I have to say about the topic.
I don't have anything in my brain anymore.
Yeah, we talked about everything we wanted to talk about, and I think this is also a very big topic, big spectrum, and we'll probably go back to it at some point, one
For
way or
sure.
another. If we talk about social anxiety, if we talk about other kinds of fears, I just see the unknown as like all the fears are related to the unknown because we don't like things going against our way. And I feel it's all connected in a sense, our fears. So
For sure.
yeah, it's all connected to our childhood, the things we experience and everything. So that's it. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.